Hi, everyone. Welcome to our next session. I am Larissa Jones, your hostess with the mostest, and I am here today with Julia Drewniak, who is going to talk about lights, camera learning, the basics to creating an educational video. Such a relevant topic with us being virtual still, and I am excited to have you here. A few housekeeping notes. Please feel free to use your reactions. I call them emotions. Your emotions as you, yes, exactly. Feel free to use those. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to pop them in the chat. And Julia can see the questions, and so can I. So we'll hop in and answer those. She'll answer those. I'll keep reading them and let her know when you have questions. And we are going to get it started. So without further delay, Julia, I'll turn it over to you. Julia, I think you're on mute.
How's that, better?
That's better. It happens to all of us. Yes, there you go.
Thank you. So again, I'm Julia Drewniak. So by day, I'm an instructional designer for an optical company that started on the East Coast, expanding out west. And one of the reasons why I was hired was because of my video production skills. So I'm really excited to get to share my love and passion for creative and fun video content with all of you today. But to start off with, I really want to know your skill level. So the first poll I have is, how many educational videos have you created? I try to, create a presentation that fits everyone's needs. So let's go ahead and pop up that poll. I want to see how many videos you've created. All right, the votes are coming in. We'll give it a few more seconds. All right, it looks like we've got a good mix, which is good. I'm glad you all have had some experience. So some of this may be new to you, some of it may not. This is just what helps me. So I want to go ahead and pop up that second poll. How comfortable do you feel putting together an educational video? Because there's definitely a difference between being able to put one together and feeling comfortable and confident when you create it. So let's go ahead and vote for that one. Perfect. So we've got definitely a lot of watchers, which I appreciate. I'm a big watcher too. And just so you know, I have you all on my screen over here to my right or left. So that's why I'm looking off to the side. Excellent. Thank you, everyone, so much for your input. So it looks like we've got a great, diverse group today. So if you've got a question, feel free to just drop it in the chat. And again, I'm a millennial, so feel free to use those reactions at any point during the presentation. So whether you're just considering incorporating more video into your training content, or you've been making videos forever, I feel I'm a lifelong learner, and we can always learn more to make the best products for our learners. So for me, when it comes to creating the best educational video, it all comes down to being prepared, creating for a visual medium, keeping it simple, and finally, being inspired. So just like with any learning project, you'll still want to follow your normal planning process. So you'll still want to meet with those SMEs, really iron out those learning objectives. It's the same thing there. But unlike other learning projects, like for example, an e-learning where it's just you and a computer, video production takes a little bit more time and effort and can have a lot more moving parts. So having a well-played plan will save you throughout the entire process, from filming to editing. And you'll see that as I talk through everything today. So when you're planning different videos, so for example, if you have a video where you have a SME talking, what I recommend is having notes, an outline, or talking points for them. I try to avoid having them write out a script or creating a script for them, because in those situations, they tend to actually sound like they're reading them, which doesn't come across really natural on the camera. So by having some sort of outline with like the exact phrases or statements that they want to use throughout, that'll still keep them on track, but they'll sound a whole lot more natural. And especially if it's a topic they're really passionate about, that will really come across as they're talking. Now, for some projects, you're going to be doing something more of an interview style. So since you already have your content planned out, you know really what you want the video to portray, you want to develop questions ahead of time that you're going to get the answers that you need for your video. So for example, let's say you're interviewing your CEO and you really want to know the specifics on how the company started. So instead of asking them the question like, tell me about the history of the company, you really want to be specific. And also, because you have that planned out content ahead of time, that'll allow you to really think of those in the moment questions if your interviewee says something and you want more information on it. Now, for any sort of demonstration or scripted piece where you're using actors, I put actors in quotes because typically it's just associates, not actually actors that you can hire. That's when you'll really want to write out a script and have a storyboard ready for your project. Now that brings me to my second point, where we have to remember that video is a visual medium. I mean, I love watching TED Talks. They're very interesting and entertaining, but sometimes just watching the same person talk for a long time can get really boring. And especially if you're just looking at them from one way, it's not really entertaining to me, and I don't really get a lot out of it. So it really helps if you have visuals that support what the speaker is saying. Really, this is just an opportunity for you to show rather than tell. And by planning this out ahead of time, those specific visuals, this will help you, imagine what it's going to look like in the end and not just the content that's going to be included. Now, storyboarding video is really the best way to combine content and visuals. So as you can see here, storyboards come in all shapes and sizes, and you don't have to be a great artist to create something compelling. So for this project, as you can see in the middle here, I actually have sort of the dialogue and scripting that's going to go on in the scene of associates getting together and talking at the beginning of a day. On the left side here, I have sort of a written out description of what the camera will see. And then on the right is my storyboard. So hate to admit it, I'm no Picasso, but even looking at it, you can get an idea of what it's going to look like in the final product. So, I use pretty much the description to tell my actors what's going to happen. And then I have that backup with the visuals to either show it to my actors or to have in my mind what it's going to look like on screen. So of course, here are some examples. So again, you have on the left here my picture, my beautiful drawing of associates at the beginning of the day. And here's how it translated on the screen. And then in the second example, I've got sort of a mid shot of the doctor talking to everyone, and then another shot later on of two associates discussing patients for the day. Now, when you're writing and going through this process, I highly, highly recommend to write down everything you need. You're working with actors or SMEs that are really busy, so, it's going to be challenging to get them back together if you need to reshoot something. So planning this out ahead of time and, taking a few extra shots of a scenario, even if you're happy with it, will help you in the long run when you get to the editing room. Now, you want to make sure you include any extra shots, or in the biz, we call it BRoll, that you might need. So as you can see in this example, I had two cameras to use, so I wanted to lay it out ahead of time so I was able to capture the two different angles without the cameras overlapping each other. Now, I want to tell you now, I didn't always have two cameras. Sometimes I only had one to work with, and you don't need multiple cameras to do multiple angles. What you have to do instead is really plan out those shots ahead of time, and when you actually get to filming, you'll just want to do that same scene again and just have the camera in a different position. So as you're trying to plan all this out, really think creatively when you're planning these shots. So these extras may save you in the editing room. So try to think of it from different angles, different perspectives, everything in between. Now, my question to you, and I'd love to see it in the chat, is, if you haven't done videos before, what stopped you from making videos in your training up to this point? Or if you've already made videos, what challenges have you faced? Hopefully we can get to them at the end of the session, but I feel like from what I've heard from others, sometimes we make it too complicated. That's why I like to really keep it simple, the KISS principle. Now, when it comes to video production and editing, what does it mean? Keep it simple. Well, I will be the first to tell you, you don't need fancy 4K cinema cameras, you don't need fancy lights, microphones, or anything like that to make great educational video content. So while these elements may make your video look and sound better, if you don't have that content already planned ahead, your video is not going to be any better than somebody with all that fancy equipment. So one of the ways, and I've actually done it before, you can film your content is just use your phone. I feel like, the video quality on phones these days just keep getting better over time. And with YouTube, TikTok, those sorts of platforms, people are really used to that type of filming. Now, if you are, and you know that you're going to be doing extra videos in the future, you can easily build up your equipment over time. So for examples, there's mics you can plug into your phone. Definitely invest in a tripod, or you can even get fancier cameras over time. Now, I encourage you to do that if that's something you're going to be investing in, but I highly recommend you to remember that with that fancy equipment comes a whole set of knowledge that you're going to learn, because if you don't know how to use the camera you've got, then you're going to have a hard time making content. So if that's something you're not really interested or enthusiastic about, you may end up spending more time learning how to use the camera than making great content with it. So if you do make that investment, just make sure you set that time aside to definitely learn more about the new equipment you have. Yes, I love it. Content first, always. Now, when it comes to simplicity, it also applies to video edits. Now, I'll tell you right now, any software you have on your computer, or whether you download something for free or low cost, will be just fine for putting together your video. Now, myself, editing is where I love to work. It's my favorite part of the production process. So I usually use more advanced equipment because I really want to make those fine tweaks to my edits. Now, even those less expensive programs really offer a variety of effects and transitions, and you may be really excited to use them. But, for me, most of the time, I really, again, content first. If you're adding all of those fancy transitions and effects, your audience may be more distracted than actually paying attention to the content you have. So unless that's the look you're really going for, definitely stick to keeping it simple. Now, something you may hear a lot when it comes to video production is that you can fix it in post. Lots of people always say, hey, make me look skinnier, cut this out. And I'm like, okay, and smile and nod. Let me just tell you from experience, that's usually not the case. You can't always make those sorts of edits without making everyone else look crazy. Or if you can fix it, you have to be prepared for it to take some time. So as you can see here on the left, I had there was a sign in the background, but we didn't really want to highlight a particular brand. So I had to spend some time going in and editing that out. Or in this example on the right, when I was filming, I didn't notice there was a mic in the shot. So after the fact, I had to get that out, and especially it was challenging when he put his elbow in front of the mic. So again, editing, that sort of stuff is going to take you some time if you need to do it. Now, another thing you can't fix in post is if you're missing footage. If you don't have it, you can't use it. Again, it's a lot of time and effort to get everyone back together if you need to refilm. So that's why back at the beginning, planning stuff ahead of time is so important and key because you'll be kicking yourself later if you don't have those shots. Now, for me, that plan I make in the beginning really makes it simple to go in, edits, find the shots I need, and just go from there. But of course, just because you have a plan, you don't have to stick to it 100% of the time. So for example, let's say on the fly you decided to film some extra footage and it turned out really great and looks really good and you want to incorporate it into your piece. Go ahead. You want to put it in, go for it. But then, of course, on the flip side, there may be that one shot that took you forever to film. But then once you get it back to the editing room, it doesn't look right. It doesn't work right. I hate to say it, you need to cut it out because we have to remember, in the end, it's really what's going to work best for our learners and fit with our learning objectives that we need to put together a great product. So we have to be open and flexible in that regard. Now, my final piece of advice is to be inspired. So for myself, I watch a lot of YouTube videos from a variety of topics. And, from tech tips to cooking demonstrations, movie theories, everything under the sun. Now, by watching this wide variety of content, it really allows me to find things I like or don't like, and I can incorporate into future projects. So when I watch a video or a movie or whatever, and I see something I like, I go ahead and ask myself these questions. First, what exactly about it did I like? And this is where you want to be specific. Was it the lighting? Was it the tone? Was it the way it was filmed? You want to have that in mind. Now, then the second thing you want to think about is how do you think they did it? And could you possibly replicate it? Because I love watching Marvel movies, but I don't think I'm going to get any of those fancy effects anytime soon without a lot of time and effort. And then finally, and most importantly, what you like, how can you actually make it your own? I know every one of you in here are a unique and creative individual. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in this field. And why would you want to be a carbon copy of someone else? You know what you like and how you can create it, so make it your own at that point. So here's an example. Two of the cooking channels I watch regularly are You Suck at Cooking and the Babish Culinary Network with Binging with Babish and Basics with Babish. So both of these shows have humorous, faceless narrators, and they're demonstrating their cooking techniques. But as you watch their videos, you'll see they have their own individual styles. There's difference in tone and content. And they took what's a relatively common way of demonstrating techniques and really inserted their own personality to give viewers a unique and entertaining content that we all enjoy. So these tips may seem simple, almost too basic, but from my experience, these are helpful ways to get started. And I don't want you to make the same mistakes that I did. So it's so easy to create an educational video these days. Like I said, go out, film yourself on your camera. So I really encourage you to start because, you make one, you'll continue to learn as you make more over time. And you'll grow along the way. So that's all I have. So I want to thank everyone for joining me today. I actually do have a handout for you all. It has some books and YouTube channels I like, some of the notes from the presentation, as well as links to those cooking videos that I took from, so you can actually watch and see the difference between the two videos. So I'll go ahead and take a moment to look at the questions to see if there's anything we need to go over.
Hey, Julia. So actually, Lisa Ann asked a question a while back when you were sharing your artistry about about your which I draw the same way, so I totally get it. About your template. What template do you use?
What I did is I created a grid in Word or PowerPoint, whatever you want. I usually like PowerPoint of, boxes. The top row is big, the little row is small, about 3 or 4 per page. And that's all I have. I literally have the box here. So I create a page and then I have a million blank pages printed out. And that's all I use. And I You can definitely do it on the computer as well, but I like drawing it instead just to get that different perspective because we're all on computers day in, day out. I like to do it a little differently.
Awesome. Are there any other questions? And I popped the presentation in the top, so you see the link out to the Google Drive for that. So definitely take a lot of great tips today that Julia shared. So thank you for that.
Yep, I'm seeing 3 cameras nowadays. That's a lot. Like I have multiple cameras, but I usually like to stick with 2 because it's usually a one-woman show. So if I have to carry it all, 2 is usually my limit. And yes, a good mic is a good investment. Like if you're trying to think of what you want to build up to, obviously you've got your phone. I'd recommend a tripod first. So you can definitely make versions. You can always YouTube versions to make. But then second, a good mic, because if they can't hear you, what's the point?
Great point. So what are some hacks that you can share?
Hacks, let's see. I'm trying to think it. It's a great question. Yeah, it's definitely I don't know if it's a hack, but my favorite part with is watching somebody else do something and then try to figure out how to do it myself. So for instance, I had a video where someone went, they had one piece of clothing on, then they went behind a tree and came out the other side with a different piece of clothing on, different outfit. So it was really fun and interesting to figure out how do I create that. It's all done in editing, I'll tell you that. You can look it up yourselves online how to do it, but that's really the creative part for me, is really making it my own. What do I like? What do I see? I'm inspired by visuals, so that's why I'm telling you all, go out and watch. This is your opportunity to watch a lot of TV, a lot of visuals, because you can tell people, hey, I'm learning here. Gosh, so.
That's a great tip. Is there a term for that? Because you see it a lot. You see people throw something in the air and then poof, it's transformed. And I know they do it in editing, but is there a term for it?
I don't think there's a specific term for it. Like I can't think of it off the top of my head. It's just really layering 2 pieces of film, not real film, but 2 pieces of footage on top of each other and editing it so that one's you see on the other side, then it's hidden, and then you see the other one. It's just aligning the pieces together.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, I see a question about what editing softwares would you yes, I like Magic. That's the editing magic. They say I zhuzh and have lots of magic powers. As far as editing software, obviously if you have a Mac, you can just go ahead and use iMovie. I know with Adobe products, if you've already got that in your arsenal and you really don't want to go into Adobe Premiere with all the fancy equipment just yet, Adobe Rush is a great place to start as well. Camtasia's out there. Any sort of video editing program that looks reputable, I would definitely recommend. Just be careful, read some reviews first, making sure it's not from a sketchy place, because I don't want you to get a virus. So anything is good.
Right.
And yes, Rush is great because you can also do those edits on your phone. So if you have to do a quick turnaround on something, it's a great way to start. All right, I see a question. Does sound or music distract from the content? Yes, it can distract. So it's always important to really make sure when you get into a space, and this is where I nerd out, so I apologize, or you might enjoy it, is when you actually get into a room to interview, listen to the sound. Like, for example, when I interview in an office, sometimes those offices may have music playing softly in the background. You want to ask them to turn it off, because when you get to the editing room and you're like, I want this clip from minute 1 and this clip of minute 3, you put them together, then you have that awkward jump between the audio in the background. It's not great. So it can definitely be distracting, but on the flip side, it can also set the mood for the piece. So if you have someone talking, sometimes it can be kind of boring. So usually I like to put some low music in the background that really fits the mood of the piece. So I did one where we were talking about patient stories. And so I had sort of like some swelling music in the background as they describe this patient's experience with our company. So it can definitely distract, but it can also enhance the piece as well.
Nice. Are there any more questions?
Yeah, I'm trying to go through quickly. Yeah, like I said, I can nerd out on it this whole day. Again, editing is my favorite portion of the process. So if that's something you're new to, I love working with people to sort of go through the editing process and, showing them how I put something together and helping them learn it along the way. So if that's something you're interested in, I love doing that.
Well, you shared your LinkedIn, so I'm sure you'll get quite a few questions over there.
Yes, and feel free to reach out to me at any point. I love this stuff. I try to keep it basic and not nerd out too much today.
This was fantastic. Well, thank you so much. If you have questions, definitely reach out to Julia, and I'm sure you'll be floating around maybe in the lounge later. So definitely connect there. And thank you all for joining us. We'll see you in the next session. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.